The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Thursday, January 16th. I hope everybody's having a phenomenal week. It's almost over. We're well into 2025 now. So with all that implies, we're also only 4 days away. 4 days away from Donald Trump becoming president of the United States. So, we'll see. We'll see. So I've been getting, I wouldn't say flack, but I've been getting a lot of commentary from people saying, Yaron, you really, come on, you got to find some positives. You're way too negative. There's got to be some good things coming out of Trump, and there's got to be some good stuff that's going to happen. And I feel it. I get it. I am really, really negative. I don't like being this negative. I don't like it at all. And there's no question I'm harsher on Trump than I am on other past presidents, partially because so many people out there who are in one way or another related are so pro-Trump. So it feels like I have to be a counter voice. But all right, point taken. We're going to look at everything that Trump does, or a lot of what Trump does, all the important stuff that Trump does. And when there's positive stuff, we'll cover the positive stuff. I'll talk about the positive stuff. I will say, and we'll get to this later, nothing positive about the deal for Israel other than the hostages being released, but nothing positive about Trump's involvement, and we'll talk more about that. I also have been told that I was too harsh on Ben Shapiro. We'll talk about that later when we talk about the Hamas victory. So what I thought I'd start off today with doing is I've got a lot of Trump appointees are now in front of Congress. They are being questioned. They are articulating views and positions, which I assume are reflective of the Trump administration's position. So this is an opportunity, I think, to comment on all that and to kind of take them at their word. They get a lot of these quick questions and answers, and we can get, okay, the Trump position is on X, Y, Z. Here it is, and lay it all out. And I think today we've got six, or yesterday, I think we got 6 different cabinet positions in front of Congress today. So getting a whole slew of different points of view, of different views reflective of the Trump administration and or what the Trump administration wants to achieve, its policies. So we're going to cover some of that. I've got a list of them, anyway from, do you know what Trump's position is on the Jones Act? Well, we know as of a little while ago, we know exactly what it is. We'll talk more about, U.S.-China energy from Bezos, the Treasury Secretaries, and minimum wages, and the credit cap, and taxes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's just a steady stream of tweets that Donald Trump is generating, and then on top of that, you've got again all these administration appointees commenting on different things, and we can learn from them, at least to some extent, what they are thinking in terms of different policy agendas. Well, let's talk about TikTok. We'll talk about Jurassic Park. Maybe red dye number 3. Red dye number 3 has made the news, so we'll talk about red dye number 3. And that's it. And we'll see. The rest of the show will be determined by you. If you want me to answer a particular question, address a particular issue, If you have something really, really positive that you think Trump is doing, has done, will do, then ask about it in the super chat. So super chat is open, available to all of you to ask questions, prod me, punch me, whatever, through questions. Get me to talk about the things you want me to talk about. All right, let's see. Yeah, so let's take just a bunch of issues, right? No particular order, just the way they appeared on my Twitter feed, I guess. So they appeared in the news this morning, just out of the various Q&As out there. So the first question in the hearing for the United States Department of Transportation. We have a Department of Transportation in the United States. Why? I don't know. Maybe it should make that list of departments that should be eliminated. I'm not sure why you need the government involved in transportation. But anyway, we do have such a department, and we have a new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, and I heard a lot of good things about Sean Duffy, and I was full of anticipation for his for what he would say during the hearing. And he got a great, perfect question, number one, from a Democrat, but a good question. Senator Cantwell came out with this question right out of the gate, pretty straightforward. A question that relates to transportation and actually relates to me, my life in Puerto Rico. She says, she asked if the Trump administration would be a supporter, would continue to support the Jones Act. One of the dumbest acts on the books. We've talked about this in the past. The Jones Act makes it a requirement that a ship that travels between a U.S. port and another U.S. port without stopping on the way, but direct between two U.S. ports, has to be U.S. flagged, i.e. registered in the U.S., U.S. manned, the people working on the ship have to be from the U.S., and U.S. built. The boat has to actually have been built in the U.S. So owned, either was flagged, manned, and built. There are only 72 such ships in service today. For example, no LNG ships qualify for that. So, for example, if Boston is at capacity in terms of using natural gas from the pipelines that it has, and it would like to bring in some additional natural gas to beef up its heating requirements in the winter through the LNG terminal that exists at the port in Boston, they cannot get natural gas from Baltimore or from Houston because that would require a Jones Act LNG ship. And as a consequence, they would have to get an LNG ship from, I don't know, Russia or some other country that exports LNG. Now, they can't do it from Russia right now because there's sanctions. So they would have to get it from some other country. So in other words, Boston imports natural gas in spite of being in a country, America, that exports natural gas. Yeah, it's nuts. Puerto Rico imports natural gas from not from the United States because it would have to use a Jones Act ship. If you want to move containers from the Baltimore harbor to the New York harbor to the Boston harbor to the Jacksonville, Florida harbor, you cannot really effectively do it by ship, which is the natural way to do it, because there's just not enough Jones Act ships that could take that kind of cargo. And as a consequence, you put them on trucks and you drive them up I-95. It's why we have so much truck traffic on I-95. And you could go on and on. If you want to take a cruise from Washington to Alaska, that cruise ship is going to have to stop in Canada because it cannot legally go from Seattle to Alaska without stopping, because there's no Jones Act cruise ships. There's one, and that's what makes it possible to go from on a cruise ship from LA to Hawaii. Only one ship can do that. The rest stop in Mexico on the way to Hawaii. It really, really is insane. It's one of the dumbest policies that exist, but it is supported by the longshoremen. It's supported by the few people that actually work on ships. It's supported by the very, very few companies and the very, very few places that actually build ships in America. Trump supposedly wants to build more ships in America, even though it costs way more, and it takes way longer to build them here than it would, for example, in South Korea or Japan, allies of the United States, last time I looked. So the Trump administration had a very, very clear answer to the question of, do you support the Jones Act? The answer was yes. So anybody who expected or hoped that the Trump administration, in the name of liberty, capitalism, free markets, efficiency, lower costs, reducing traffic on I-95, reducing fatalities on I-95, lowering prices in the United States, improving energy, movement of energy within the United States. If anybody expected Donald Trump to do anything about any of those things, the answer is no. Now, if the Transportation Secretary had said, yes, we are for eliminating the Jones Act, I would have been the first one to congratulate the Trump administration for doing such an amazing thing as eliminating the Jones Act. And I would have thanked him, because the cost of living in Puerto Rico would have dropped dramatically in terms of food products and oil and gas and energy and everything else. But it's not about Puerto Rico. It's about the U.S. more broadly. Jones Act is one of the most irrational policies we have in the books. And it's truly unbelievable that this didn't take the new Secretary of the Transportation more than a fraction of a second to say simply, yes. Yes, ma'am, I think he said, or yes, sir, or whatever. Yes, ma'am. As he is a supporter of the Jones Act. So much. I tried, I hoped, I was really hoping I would be able to say something positive about the Trump administration on this one. Yeah, didn't work out that way, sorry. You know, you win some, you lose some. All right, we have a new, an appointee for a Treasury Secretary, who by all accounts is a smart guy. I mean, he got a lot of support from a lot of smart people. He is a hedge fund guy. Hedge fund guys tend to be pretty smart. He knows something about economics, I think. Anyway, he seems like okay. Anyway, one of the questions he got today, this is Besant. One of the questions he got was from Senator Wyden, a Democrat. He was asked who would pay these tariffs. Who's going to pay the tariffs? Let's be clear. The Trump administration is doubling down on their commitment for tariffs. There's no backing off of this. They've clearly doubling up on it. So who would pay the tariffs? And, you know, I guess Besant could be honest and tell the truth, but then he would piss off his boss. And he isn't even on the job yet. I don't know that you want to piss off your boss before you're on the board. So this is what he said after Wyden basically said the tariffs would hurt American workers because they would raise prices on Americans, and Americans basically raise prices in the form of raising taxes on Americans. That's not the only way in which they raise prices, but that's one way in which they raise prices on Americans is by this new tax. This is what Bezos said. Yeah, whenever I get to these things, I have to laugh because it's funny, because they have to do the dance, and it's a completely and utter contradictory dance, but you have to do it. So here's what he said. He said, I would significantly disagree. I would respectfully disagree. He says, consumer preferences will change. What does that mean? And then I'll go on. Basically, consumer preferences will change will mean people will stop preferring the foreign goods and start buying American goods, right? So they would shift. They would shift their preferences. And he says, and then he said, and foreign countries, including China, will have to cut prices to maintain market share. Now, here's the funny thing, right? If consumer preferences away from imports actually change and they're willing to pay more for US-made stuff, and it's more because if it wasn't more, then they'd buy US-made stuff today. US-made stuff is more expensive. So if consumer preferences change, then Americans will indeed pay higher prices. And indeed, there won't be much to collect on the tariffs because there won't be any tariffs. Americans will stop buying foreign goods, and the tax will be irrelevant. They'll just buy more expensive American goods. They'll pay higher prices, and the government will get exactly zilch, nada, nothing in the form of tax revenue. It's just simple economics. On the other hand, if consumer preferences don't change because, let's say, Chinese and other foreign exporters cut prices, or put it this way, if Chinese and foreign exporters cut prices and Americans continue to buy from them, then consumer preferences don't change. You can't have your cake and eat it too. One or the other have to happen. And, you know, if Chinese companies are willing to absorb the entire cost of the tariff, let's say a product is selling for $10 in the United States right now, and there's a 20% tariff placed on it, then it should sell in the United States for $12, and the consumer is paying the $2 of taxes, the tariff, to the Treasury of the United States. The price of goods goes up to $12, and the government gets $2 in revenue from the tariff. What Trump is arguing, wanting this cake and eat it too, is what will actually happen is that the Chinese company will cut its price that it sells the product in the United States to $8 something, right? So that and then if you count the 20% tariff, then the price will stay $10, and the American consumer will not pay a tariff because they will pay $10, which is what they paid before. And what will happen is that the Chinese will be getting a lot less. They will be getting 8 instead of 10. So they will be paying the tariff. That's Trump's logic for why this will happen. And some of that indeed is likely to happen. Chinese companies will cut prices for a while as long as they can sustain those losses. At some point, they won't be able to, and then they'll have to raise prices. But for a while, they might indeed cut, and that could happen. But then you're not helping American jobs in a sense of American companies producing competing products. Consumer preferences are not changing. Nothing happens. Americans continue to buy all the Chinese goods. They just buy them differently. Now, there's all kinds of other stuff that happens, like, for example, the dollar actually strengthens as a consequence of the tariffs by 20%. Because the dollar is stronger, you're buying it at the equivalent of 8. So you're buying it at a lower price in terms of dollars, and the tariff doesn't affect the price that much, nothing really happens as a consequence. Trade deficits stay as high as they are, you get some revenue from the tariffs, the United States has a higher price dollar, which makes exports of stuff more difficult and imports easier because the dollar is stronger. One of the things you'll notice about the whole discussion about tariffs, and unfortunately Besant has to play this game because he can't contradict his boss, is that what you'll get is the effect of tariffs are complex. None of them are really good. They impact lots of different things. The reality is that every study that's actually looked at tariffs, the consequence for the United States are negative, but they will have these convoluted, distorted explanations for how it works that sound intelligent and sound like, okay, yeah, maybe that makes sense. And they're just self-contradictory and they don't make any sense, and they express a complete and utter ignorance of economics. Now, I don't think Bezos is ignorant of economics. I just think he's lying because he has to, because his boss is ignorant of economics, but his boss is the one dictating policy. So, yes, Bezos on tariffs, terrible. Too bad. By the way, recently, I think it was published today, on what would happen if you had a universal 20% tariff across the board, what impact that would have on U.S. households. The estimate is that would raise the cost to U.S. households by $2,045 on average. So we would spend, if we didn't change our buying patterns, we would spend about $2,000 more than we do right now because of the tariff. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of simplification there. I'm sure there's all kinds of other stuff going on. I think my guesstimate would be that it's even worse than that. But the whole idea that you can raise tariffs and not impact the cost of living of Americans is bizarre. But again, a lot of different things happen when you raise tariffs. Some of them offsetting. Again, a stronger dollar would actually make your purchasing power stronger, would mitigate some of the effect of the tariff, but would also really hurt exporting businesses. Which my guess would be that what Trump would do is he would give a subsidy to the exporters that are being hurt. And this all assumes, by the way, that other countries don't increase their tariffs. That is, that other countries don't impose tariffs on the United States on our goods, and taking into account what impact that has on American economics and American household expenditure. All right, let's see some more. So here's something good Bezos did. So he was confronted by, again, Ron Wyden, the Democratic senator. And Ron Wyden basically says, with regard to energy policy, he says, we're in a clean energy arms race with China. Which side are you on? And Bezos comes back with, which is, I think, really good. He says, China's going to build 100 new coal plants this year. There's not a clean energy race. There's an energy race. China will build 10 nuclear power plants this year. I'm in favor of more nuclear plants. So he completely shifted the conversation away from batteries and solar panels and all of that, which is what Wyden wanted to talk about, and made it about energy, not about solar panels. That's, what would you call that, an Alex Epstein move? Make this about energy abundance, China is working towards energy abundance by building 100 new coal plants, 10 new nuclear plants. We are losing that challenge. Energy prices in China are going to be super low, continue to be super low, unless we start building power plants and unless we start investing in the future of power, including nuclear, including lots and lots and lots more natural gas power plants. We will not have low energy prices. They will go up because of the demand from the incredible new demand that's going to come online for AI. So that was good. I like that. The fact that we've got a Treasury Secretary and an Energy Secretary, as far as I know, and I think an Interior Secretary, all supporting nuclear power, all supporting more energy, all supporting energy abundance. That is definitely a good thing. This administration is going to be very good on this. And then Bernie Sanders gets into the act, and Bernie asks Bezos a pretty straightforward question. And again, this one we are going to say this is good. Bernie Sanders says, will you work with us to raise the federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour? And Bezos' answer is pretty simple and straightforward. No. Bezos basically said, which I think is, again, a mistake, but he says, I think that's an issue best left to states and local governments. Let them determine minimum wages. The federal minimum wage should be irrelevant. What matters is the state and local. So he didn't come out against higher minimum wages. He just came out against higher federal minimum wages. So better than nothing. It's interesting that we didn't hear much from Biden in 4 years about trying to raise the federal minimum wage, about raising the federal minimum wage. Then Bernie Sanders asked the Treasury Secretary nominee whether he would support and put into place what Donald Trump promised, which is a credit card interest rate cap at 10%. Again, Bezos is better than this, but he has to do what his boss tells him to do. And Bezos, as a consequence, indicated that he would follow the president's policy direction on this matter. He suggested that, yes, banks, credit card issuers probably take advantage of consumers by having too high of an interest rate on credit card debt, and that, yes, the administration would act to limit that. So there you go. I mean, good thing and then just an awful thing. I mean, can you imagine what this would mean, right? Basically, Bezos says, when President Trump takes office and I'm confirmed, I will follow what President Trump wants to do. But he confirmed that this is a real issue. I mean, it's a disaster, right? If you cap interest rates on credit cards, basically a lot of people out there are not going to be able to get credit cards. Not going to be able to get credit cards. If you're even a little bit risky, they're going to yank the credit card away from you because they can't get compensation for the risk that you represent. So only safe people with immaculate credit ratings are going to get credit cards. The rest are not. Bezos sells out when he agrees that credit card companies can be bad actors, right? I don't know that he even believes in that, but he has to say it. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Yeah, a lot of talk about taxes. Again, in the first 100 days here, we're going to get a bill that is going to include a continuation of the tax cuts from 2017. So not a lot of new tax cuts, tariffs, and that's a new tax increase, but not a lot of new tax cuts. Maybe some on the middle class, or maybe even some on the working class tax cuts there. Although, about 50% of Americans don't pay any income taxes at all. But there is discussion they want to try to get some Democratic votes on the tax proposals. And one of the things that the 2017 tax cut did, I don't know if you guys remember this, one of the things they did, which I thought was really good, even though I was living in California at the time, was that it really, it capped the amount of money you could deduct from your federal taxes that you paid for your state taxes. And this was clearly done to penalize Democrats, because Democrats are the ones that come from high tax states. So if you live in California and you're paying 10% to the state, before you could deduct that from your federal taxes, so you were paying less than 10% because it was tax deductible. So it was, you'd have to figure out what your federal tax rate was, and then figure out exactly what the state does. But it was basically less than 10 because it was deductible. Well, Republicans capped it at 10,000, so that for anybody wealthy, you couldn't deduct it anymore, and as a consequence, you bore the full pain of the state tax. And the idea was, by forcing people to bear the full pain of the state tax, that would create pressure, and at the state level, to lower taxes. Which never happened, by the way. There's no pressure in California to lower taxes. Indeed, Kyle says 10% state taxes sounds insane. The top marginal tax rate in California, state tax in California, is 13%. 13%. So yes, that is insane, but that is the reality. And if in New York, it's, I think, just over 13%. If you live in the city of New York, if you count New York City taxes and state taxes, it's even more than 13%. The reality is it doesn't work to drive people to lower state taxes. And what Republicans now want to do is give a bigger deduction to rich people, to wealthy people, to the wealthy, or top earners for their tax deductions. So if you live in California and New York, this is good news. You'll be able to pay less taxes because you'll be able to deduct the state taxes that you pay. So, I think the whole tax system should be scrapped and started over. So I think the whole thing is crazy. I wouldn't have a deduction for state taxes if I were redoing the federal taxes. I would have a flat tax with no deductions for anything, except maybe if we could start medical saving accounts and educational saving accounts. Those would be the two things that you could deduct for, but nothing else. That's just me. No mortgage deductions, no non-for-profit deductions, no nothing deductions, no deductions, just no deductions. Just have a simple flat tax, 10%. Everybody pays 10% across the board, and that was it. I don't know if that would raise enough revenue. Maybe you'd have to raise it to 15%, or maybe start at 15% and slowly phase it out. But it would have to be really super simple. I think part of what makes taxes so offensive and horrible and destructive is their complexity. And part of any decent pro-American, pro-individualist tax reform would be, first and foremost, simplification. Simplification. As I think Steve Forbes once said, should be able to fill it out on a postcard. Take away all the perverse incentives that people have to give to charity or to get big mortgages or to whatever. Just get the government out of that business completely. Trying to incentivize to have more kids. No kid deductions, right? None of this. Just this is the amount of revenue as a household you bring in. You pay 10%. That's it. and make it. I think everybody would be thankful for that. I mean, not a lot of people deduct anyway, but for the people who deduct, and even the people who don't deduct still get deductions, so it's complicated. It's complicated. Get rid of it. All of it. Throw it out. All right, what else do we have? Oh, yes, this was important. You know, again, I'm just going through what Donald Trump did today. So, you know, some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's stupid. This one, I think, falls into the stupid category. Not particularly harmful. Kind of a pat on the back to some, you know, old guys, but you know, not particularly harmful, but just a waste of time and effort. This is Donald Trump on his Truth Social. It is my honor to announce Jon Voight, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone to be special ambassadors to a great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California. They will serve as special envoys to me for the purpose of bringing Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years, to foreign countries, back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. These three very talented people will be my eyes and ears, and I will get done what they suggest. It will again be, like the United States of America itself, the golden age of Hollywood. I'm not going to mention Mel Gibson's, you know, history, anti-Semitism, craziness, wackiness, and just obsession with ivermectin. We'll put that aside. But there is a spooky aspect to this, I have to admit, now that I read it again. Before I just thought, okay, this is kind of funny and stupid. But now it is a little spooky. I'm going to send these two people to basically spy on Hollywood. They're going to be my, what is it? Ears and eyes and ears. Now, what is the president of the United States supposed to do about Hollywood? What is his job vis-a-vis Hollywood? What involvement should the president of the United States, should the federal government have in Hollywood? I think the answer to that is none, zero, zilch, nothing. It seems to me that any involvement would suggest free speech issues potentially. Like, if Hollywood is too woke for Voight, Gibson, and Stallone, is that going to mean that the president will do something about it? If the action movies are not masculine enough, is the president of the United States going to do something about it? What exactly are we going to do? Is Hollywood now a place for state propaganda? I just don't know. It's going to be interesting to have. I mean, the intellectual giants, Voight, Gibson, and Stallone, be the ears and eyes of the federal government in Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, aren't you excited? Aren't you excited about this? This isn't. Look, I'm just reading the text as I get it. I don't make it up. I'm not spinning it. I'm trying to be. I'm trying not to be too anti-Trump here. All right, what is this one? Yes. Okay, so here's a what seems to be a consensus around among his advisors. So hard to tell again how much this will actually be policy, how much it's real or not. But there was the hope, real hope, that when Trump became president, and maybe there was hope that maybe the deal he got with Netanyahu around the Hamas deal involved that as soon as Trump got into power, there would be an American-led attack on Iranian nuclear facilities and destruction of those. And maybe that was the deal he cut with Netanyahu. You give me this deal with Hamas, and I'll give you Iran. We'll take them out together. We'll take them out. Well, it seems like it really does seem like that is not, at least not the first thing that Trump is going to do vis-a-vis Iran. That really the first thing will be what he calls a return to maximum pressure, maximum sanctions, with a wide array of sanctions right after inauguration. So you can expect an executive order the day of that dramatically expands sanctions on Iran. So probably no military action, but a lot of sanctions. And then my expectation would be that with those sanctions will come a significant round of negotiations trying to take advantage of Iran's weakness right now, not to topple the regime, not to destroy the nuclear facilities, but to negotiate a better deal, the greatest deal ever, the best deal America has ever negotiated with any country ever. That's me. That's not Trump, but it could be Trump. The expectation is also that a similar thing would be expected against Venezuela, that we would have really tough maximal pressure sanctions on Venezuela. Not sure exactly why. Venezuela is not Iran. Venezuela is not a threat to the United States. Iran is. But, okay, you know, Venezuela is a bad regime, so I'm all for going after them. So that is one of the foreign policy things coming out of this. But more, and this one is surprising. And this one is surprising for the positive, I would have to say. Again, according to advisors, sources, who knows, Trump is actually planning significantly tougher sanctions on Russia in order to push it towards a peace deal. So supposedly advisors are drafting comprehensive sanctions strategy aimed at fostering a diplomatic resolution between Russia and Ukraine, so really squeezing the Russians. The plan would include measures such as tightening secondary sanctions, targeting ships transporting Russian oil. Already, some ships have been targeted. For example, some Russian oil couldn't be offloaded in Chinese ports because the Chinese port was abiding by U.S. sanctions, and they would not let these Russian ships come in. So it sounds like Trump wants to double up on these sanctions. This is just recent, a new round of sanctions that the Biden administration put on them. They want to twist Russia's arm and then slowly ease as Russia enters negotiation and seems to be willing to negotiate. So it's good that the first act is not to squeeze Ukraine and to twist their arms and to try to get them to surrender. That's good. Whether this will actually be the strategy or not, or whether he really is going to increase sanctions on Moscow or not, we'll see. But if he does, I'll give him a thumbs up for that. That is good. Hopefully that'll go side by side with a long-term commitment vis-a-vis Ukraine. Finally, last Trumpish thing. God, we've gone 45 minutes on this. I didn't think it would take this long. One last final Trumpish thing. I'm going to read you again a Truth Social from Trump. And I want you, this has nothing to do with policy, so there's no policy implications for this at all. This is, all this is I want you to hold the idea, and maybe this is just me that finds these things offensive, but I want you to hold this notion that this is the President of the United States. This is the mentality, the attitude, the way he communicates, the way he talks about other people, of the President of the United States. And I don't think this will surprise you because we've seen this throughout. But it's just constantly just amazes me. And that what amazes me in particular is that nobody else seems to find it offensive except me. I'm like the only person who seems to find this a bad sign, a bad cultural sign, that the President of the United States can speak like this and nobody cares. All right, here it goes. As of today, the incoming Trump administration has hired over 1,000 people for the United States government. They are outstanding in every way, and you will see the fruits of their labor over the coming years. We will make America great again, and it will happen very quickly. In order to save time, money, effort, it would be helpful if you would not send or recommend to us people who worked with or are endorsed by, Americans for no prosperity. Parentheses, headed by Charles Koch. Remember the days where Charles Koch was a hero of Republicans? A hero, certainly of free market Republicans? Remember when Charles Koch was basically bankrolling the entire free market movement and much of the Republican Party? No longer. Charles Koch is the devil. Well, not the devil, but at least bad guy. If you've ever worked for Charles Koch, if you've ever received money from Charles Koch, if you've ever said something nice about Charles Koch, don't even think about applying for a job in the Trump administration. Comma. Quote, dumb as a rock, John Bolton. Again, if you've ever said something nice, maybe you bought John Bolton's book, or worked for John Bolton, or associated yourself with John Bolton, one of the best foreign policy thinkers in America who Donald Trump actually hired because he was good. Dumb as a rock, John Bolton. Don't apply for a job. Quote, bird brain Nikki Haley, who landed up endorsing Trump and going up embarrassingly at the Republican National Convention and endorsing Trump, is now still 4 days before he's inaugurated into the presidency. She is still just a bird brain. And if you ever worked with, for, in association with, said something nice about Nikki Haley, don't apply for a job in the Trump administration. Comma, Mike Pence. Oh my God. Yeah, all the same. So if you were in the Trump administration last time, but worked for the vice president's office, not for the president, i.e. Mike Pence, don't even apply for a job. Comma, disloyal warmongers, Dick Cheney and his psycho daughter, Liz. Again. Comma, Mitt Romney, comma, Paul Ryan, comma, General, with a question mark, Mark Miley, comma, James Mathis, comma, Mark Jespers, not misspelling his name into Jespers, comma, or any of the other people suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, more commonly known as TDS. Thank you for your attention on this matter. So, by the way, listening to Yaron Brook show, I'm pretty sure, you'd have to ask though, pretty much disqualifies you from, working for the Trump administration. So if you do listen, if you are involved, then don't apply. Don't apply for a job there. Don't apply. That is, my friends, the President of the United States. And I know I'm supposed to look for good things. I did. I searched. And a few things, they're against raising the minimum wage. That's good. Yeah. They're good on energy. We talked about this. They're great on energy. They're going to be fantastic on energy. That's good. I couldn't find much else. I'll keep looking and getting back to you as I find stuff one way or the other. All right. What is the next topic? Oh, yeah, this is also a Trump-related topic, so let's get this over with. TikTok. TikTok has 3 days to live. It basically will die on Sunday if nothing is done. And yet, Donald Trump is committed for some reason, you can speculate if you want, on saving TikTok. And on the 20th, a day after TikTok shuts down, he is going to have try to have some kind of executive order to keep it alive and to keep it going. Now, remember, TikTok, the whole issue of TikTok was raised first by Donald Trump, who accused it of being a spy organ of the Chinese government and threatened to shut it down and started this whole thing, right? Started the whole thing. Now, Donald Trump is TikTok's biggest fan. And in spite of its Chinese ownership and in spite of the other horrible things that he said about TikTok, not only is he committed to saving TikTok, But in his inaugural address, the celebrations, well, last I heard, he had not invited Bibi Netanyahu. He has invited the TikTok CEO. TikTok CEO, Shu Chu, something like that, is going to attend. He's going to be seated with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all the other tech industry leaders, even as his business in the United States is shut down. So it's pretty amazing that this guy in Donald Trump, I mean, I'm all for keeping TikTok going. As you know, I'm against shutting it down. But it's just stunning how much emphasis, focus, energy this is getting from Trump. I don't know how he can keep it going, given that there's a law passed by Congress. Now, we'll see what the Supreme Court decides. We'll probably get a decision tomorrow, would be my guess. There's also this vague possibility that Elon Musk or somebody buys it, but not clear before Sunday. It would have to happen before Sunday, according to the law. But it is a question of, is there rule of law in the United States? That is, Congress passed a law. If the Supreme Court allows the law to stand, how can the new president just overturn it in a whim? How is that going to work? So it's going to be, just on this issue, a fascinating few days. Really interesting few days to see what happens to TikTok. I don't know if you know this, but it's just interesting stuff is going on. Like, we're seeing the number of people in the United States, particularly people associated with TikTok, TikTok influencers and so on, but we're talking large numbers, suddenly starting to study Chinese. Like, the number of people signing up for Duolingo and other language programs to study Chinese has gone up through the roof. I mean, I think once they discover how hard it is, maybe those numbers will drop. But why is everybody viewing this as an opportunity to get closer to China? And then, as I told you last time, a lot of people are dropping TikTok and going as influencers, going to this other Chinese social networking app and starting to do their stuff there. The whole phenomena, somebody's going to have to study this phenomena of TikTok and China and everything else that's going on. So it is going to be interesting, right? Yep. It's this support of Trump's for TikTok, pretty big reversal from 2020 when he was all about shutting it down. All about shutting it down. All right, that was TikTok. Oh, Jurassic Park. This is kind of cool. Have you read about this? There's a company out there called Colossal Biosciences. Colossal Biosciences. Colossal Biosciences is purpose of existing is to use CRISPR technology. CRISPR is gene editing technology to revive extinct species. So basically to create a Jurassic Park. The primary project right now is to bring back the woolly mammoth. So they're taking DNA of existing, I don't know, ancestors of a woolly mammoth or some species similar to woolly mammoth, and they are editing its genome to match the DNA of a woolly mammoth. And I guess, I'm not sure, where they put the, this the new DNA and how they make it happen. They're using elephants, maybe somebody says. They expect to have, and this is stunning to me, they expect to have a woolly mammoth, a real, live, woolly mammoth by 2028. That's like 3 years away. And then they want to do the dodo and the Tasmanian tiger. Plans to bring back the Tyrannosaurus Rex are for now on hold. I'm making that one up, but I assume they're on hold. They expect to have these in big parks, and just like in Jurassic Park, the movie, you will go and I guess experience what it would be like to be with a woolly mammoth. Now, this is a kind of crazy idea. I like it only because of the cool factor. I think it would be super cool. And because I love the tech. I love the tech. The idea that you can chip away and redo the DNA and figure this out is amazing. I mean, imagine if they make a mistake and the woolly mammoth comes out as a man-eating woolly mammoth. That would be bad. Oops, missed that gene. But anyway, I think the technology is super cool. And I think it would be super amazing if they could do it. Not because I really care about seeing a woolly mammoth that much. Most people don't even see a giraffe, an elephant, a real elephant or giraffe, never mind a woolly mammoth. But I just think the tech is so cool. The science is so cool. But this is the thing that stunned me. They just raised $200 million in a Series C funding that valued the company at, anybody want to guess what the value of this company? Does not have a product yet, and its main goal is by 2028 to basically gene edit a woolly mammoth. What do you think that's worth? Ian says $6 billion. Well, he's not far off. Ryan says $26 billion, further off. $10.2 billion. Now, what would the profitability of this company have to be in the years after 2028 to make that? How would they make profit other than selling tickets to see the woolly mammoth? Are we going to eat woolly mammoth meat? What is going on here? I want to see the business plan. I haven't seen the business plan. I want to see a business plan that shows a valuation of 10.2 billion. And I'm curious I haven't seen the list of VCs. I'll look for the list of VCs because I'm curious who these VCs are. I'm sure it's going to be some big names that have invested $200 million in Tasmanian tigers and woolly mammoths. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. 10.2 billion. Amazing. All right. So a few more thoughts on the deal between Hamas and Israel. The deal which the Israeli government has not voted on yet, will vote on first thing tomorrow morning. It's been delayed because the Israelis were saying that Hamas wanted a bunch of last-minute changes, which Israel has refused. So it's been back in the drawing board. Supposedly, Hamas has relented. And the deal, as agreed on a couple of days ago, is the deal that the Israeli government will vote on in the next few hours or sometime tomorrow morning. But it does look like it's a done deal. First hostages will be released on Sunday, and then will continue to be released in a drip-like fashion over the next 42 days as Israel basically withdraws from most of the territory in the Gaza Strip, except for the Philadelphia corridor and a buffer zone surrounding the Gazan border. Supposedly it then will withdraw from Philadelphia corridor after day 42. And in that point, I think it is important to note that over the next 42 days, 33 hostages will be released. 10 of them expected to be dead, 23 live. Remember that Hamas will still have 50-something hostages at that point. So the idea that at that point Israel will just go in and start destroying Hamas again, well, what about those 50 hostages? What about the pressure about those internally and externally? What about the fact that over the next 42 days, I don't think I mentioned this, over the next 42 days, Israel having withdrawn from its positions in Gaza, will Hamas be booby trapping, setting traps for Israel, so when it comes back in after the 42 days, if that ever happens, that they will suffer casualties? What about the fact that gives 42 days, risk-free, with no harassment, for Hamas to train its fighters for what comes next? And then what is the likelihood Israel just says, okay, well, we've already retreated. We'll retreat from the rest, and we'll get our other hostages back. It'll be 42 days. Do they really want to go back to war after 42 days? And what about, putting, so they'll try to get the 50 back, and then who is going to exactly go in there and administer the Gaza Strip? If it's not Hamas, they supposedly have 20,000 fighters. Who is going to go in there and challenge them? If Israel won't, and Israel can't, and Israel failed, then who will? Anyway, it's a dead end. In my view, it's a dead end. Anyway, just to illustrate the attitudes of this, what was Hamas' response to the deal? Now, if Hamas had been defeated, if Hamas had lost this war, it would be, quiet. It would be head lowered. It would be quietly announcing this deal from the position of weakness and a position of humility, if you will, and a position of defeat. And yet, what happened yesterday were at least two things, many others, I'm sure. The head of the Hamas negotiating team, or the head of the Hamas right now, supposedly, came on Qatari television and announced a great victory for Hamas. He announced that October 7th will go down in history as one of the great events of liberation. And that, not only is he happy that October 7th happened, but that Hamas will immediately start planning for many more future October 7ths, that was the intent, that the destruction of Israel is their goal, and nothing has changed. In the streets of Gaza, you got massive celebrations. Celebrations of victory, not celebrations of defeat. Celebrations announcing a continued intifada, a continued uprising. Celebrations declaring that the goal was the liberation of Jerusalem. The goal was, if you want to use the language of our wonderful students at American universities, their goal was the river to the sea, that they have not even started yet. The same people who are out in the streets celebrating October 7th, on October 7th, as hostages were brought back, as bodies were brought back, those same people who should be dead were out in the streets yesterday, today, celebrating in anticipation of future October 7th. Now, again, I get it. You want the hostages back. I get that. But if that's true, if the hostages are the most important thing, that's fine. It still should be unbelievably depressing. It should be outrageous. It should be horrifying. This is not a bad deal. This is Israel shrugging away. This is a massive betrayal of October 7th. This is Israel giving up on the goal. This is just unbelievably self-destructive, and I don't know, should be a source of unbelievable outrage and people are being upset. Israel's surrendering. this is Israel's defeat. And with all due respect to everybody, the fact that it took Trump to get Israel to agree to these terms, it should be a source of outrage towards Trump, particularly given all the things that his foreign policy people are saying in front of Congress right now about this is going to be the most pro-Israel administration ever. We want Israel to destroy Hamas. We want Israel to do all this stuff. And yet this is what they do, is they act number one. That should be outrageous. You should be outraged. And you should feel betrayed. And it's shocking to me that people don't. That people don't, and they're not outraged. And then this is the context in which a number of you have told me that I wasn't fair to Ben Shapiro yesterday. And yeah, I probably wasn't, because Ben Shapiro, wasn't quite justifying the deal as I suggested he was. And he was not quite as bad as I suggested he was. So I apologize to Ben Shapiro and to all of you for being too harsh on Ben yesterday. And yet, Ben Shapiro put out a post today at 10:55 a.m. which is infuriating. It's just infuriating. I mean, with all due respect to Ben and all of you, he does not have the balls, the courage, but more importantly, the integrity to actually call this. So here's what he writes. I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's what he writes. Every hostage deal was going to suck, because there was always going to be a trade of innocent kidnapped victims, including presumably the bodies of children, for mass murdering terrorists. The only question is whether the deal is worse or better than it could have been. The answer, because of Team Trump, it's better. And he goes on to articulate why. I'm sorry, but that is such a cop-out. It's not better. And the issue of releasing mass murdering terrorists is not even the issue. The issue is the acceptance of Hamas as a negotiating party, the acceptance of Hamas as, after the 42 days, after the release of 33, a continuing presence in Gaza, the basic capitulation of Israel to Hamas's terms. Is there any doubt in anybody's mind that if this exact deal would have been announced 2 weeks ago under Biden administration, that Ben Shapiro would be fuming at the mouth and denouncing every single little aspect of the deal? The only reason that he is willing to say it's better than alternative deals, the only reason he's willing to not condemn this completely, is because it's Trump. Here's his final paragraph. So if a deal does indeed materialize, Team Trump gets the credit for two reasons. It made the credible threat to Hamas that things would get worse from here. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, that Hamas has moved significantly on this deal because of anything Trump said. Hamas barely moved on this deal. Most of the movement on this deal is Israel's. And then he said, and it made credible promises to Israel that if things go sideways, America will stand beside Israel. And then he says, Biden couldn't and wouldn't do either of those things. Now, does he know credible promises to Israel were made? What does it mean for the deal to go sideways? I mean, this is the thing. I'm not afraid of the deal going sideways. I hope the deal goes sideways. because then Israel will have an excuse to go after Hamas again. I'm worried about the deal not going sideways. I'm worried about the deal actually going through in its entirety. Phase 1, 2, and 3. That's the horror. That's the real danger. I mean, if they just do phase 1 and then Israel has to go back in because they can't do phase 2, then again, I think it's a horrible, horrible, horrible deal, but okay. And then, of course, Israel still faces 50 plus hostages. Israel still faces having to occupy Gaza, now reoccupy for a fourth, fifth, sixth time, many of the territories now against Hamas that has 1,000 new troops and who knows how many better trained and more prepared and more everything else. So there'll be a cost in blood of Israeli soldiers. I'm horrified by that. But okay, at least we're back to war with Hamas, which is the state we should be in. Well, we should be in the state is winning the war against Hamas. But this goes back to what I said right at the beginning of the war. If you're not willing to kill a lot of Palestinians in Gaza, you're not going to win the war. If you're not willing to kill a lot of Palestinians in Gaza, you cannot win the war. If Israel was winning this war, if Israel was even close to winning this war, if Israel was anywhere in the vicinity of winning this war, the Palestinians will be begging for a ceasefire. And maybe the Hamas wouldn't be, but the Palestinian people would be so relieved by a ceasefire, and they wouldn't be cheering for another October 7th. They'd be saying, how did we survive this? They would be on their knees saying, please, no more, enough. Enough is enough. It's nowhere near as bad as it should be over there. They still get electricity and water, and they still have diesel, and they still get food, and they still have, as I said, cellular connection with internet. They still have all of that, thanks to Israel, while the fighting goes on. A bigger altruistic war, I cannot think. And the idea that Ben Shapiro is not outraged, I mean, not critical of the deal. Sure, everybody's critical of the deal. Nobody on Israel's side is happy with this. Everybody has criticism. I'm talking about outrage. I'm outraged. I'm not just critical. I'm outraged. I think it's a betrayal. The fact that Ben is not, so maybe I was overly critical of him yesterday. He deserves a lot of criticism. Deserves a lot of criticism. All right. Boz asks, Boz, you really should use the super chat. I don't know what you're so shy about using the super chat, right? You know how to use it. You've used it before. You've asked this question in the chat like 75 times, so I will notice it. If you'd put it in the super chat, I would have answered it. And I'm debating, should I answer it and give you the bad incentive of continuing to just ask in the chat and not go to the super chat, or should I ignore you? You know, you're making it difficult for me, Boaz. All right. So he says, okay, so please, Yaron, you were right regarding Bibi. Of course I was. I don't know why anybody doubted me on this. But one question, how come Bibi folded now? What changed? What is your theory? I mean, it's obvious what changed. Trump changed. Trump's envoy went to Bibi and said, this is what I want. And so, Netanyahu and his whole government were expecting Trump is coming in, the greatest friend of Israel ever. And his envoy comes into your office and says, you want us to be your friend? We'll be your friend. But you have to do this for me. You have to give me a win before inauguration. You have to make this happen for me. And I'll be your friend. We'll see how big of a friend, if it's in my interest to continue to being a friend, I will be. but you have to be my friend. So it's basically, Trump's advisor, I forget his name, read him Walcott or something like that, an American Jewish real estate developer, read him the Riots Act and told him, this is what Trump demands that you do. And while, I don't think Biden had any leverage on Netanyahu anymore, partially because he's out of office, Trump has enormous leverage on Netanyahu for two reasons. One, he's coming in. He's got 4 years to deal with him. But second, the assumption is Trump's pro-Israel, and therefore he has the leverage of, I won't be as pro-Israel as you thought I would be. So that's why now. I mean, all the Israeli newspapers called it. They all said it was pressure from Trump. The British newspapers called it. The only newspapers that did not call it pressure from Trump were the American newspapers. Mainstream media in America doesn't do anything. I'm sure, he said things like, oh, we'll support you in Iran and we'll get you a peace deal with Saudi Arabia and all of that. Okay, but that's all was going to happen anyway. That was the anticipation. That was the starting off point. That was point zero. So, yeah, he probably vaguely, I'm sure he didn't promise anything. I'm sure didn't get concrete, firm promises about anything. But vague things, we'll support you with Iran, we'll support you with Saudi Arabia, we'll support you, just do this one little thing for me. It was a deal. It was a deal. All right. Okay, final quick story, because I don't have a lot about to say. It turns out the FDA, before RFK even gets into office, this is the Trump effect, the FDA has banned red dye number 3, citing cancer concerns. Now, let's be really clear about this. As far as I can tell, the research I've done, there's no evidence red dye causes cancer in humans. It caused cancer in rats when massive doses that you would never consume as a human being were given to those rats. And you can pretty much guarantee that anything, if you give a massive dose of, will cause cancer. Massive doses, much greater than any human consumption. You'd basically have to ingest gallons of it on a weekly basis. Indeed, alcohol consumption has a stronger link to cancer than red dye number 3. So here's a win for the Trump administration, a win for RFK, and nothing for most of us. More symbolism, more BS. Fred Harper says he drinks red dye number 3 from the tap. If you drink it from the tap, you're probably going to die. Sorry, that's just the reality. You're probably dead already. Anyway, red dye number 3 out. I have no idea if I've ever drunk red dye number 3, but we are on the path now to make America healthy again, because you won't have any red dye number 3 in your things that you consume. Aren't you relieved? I am very much relieved. One less thing to worry about in life. I'm happy. You see, I can be very balanced in my coverage of the Trump administration. I just complimented them for something good, like banning red dye number 3. All right. Whoa, Armin, thank you. It's been a while, but really, really appreciate this. Armin came in with a Happy New Year. Sorry I missed the New Year's show, and with $500, I appreciate all of the support that you've provided the show, Armin, over the last year plus. So really, really thank you. Really, really appreciate it. $500 is incredibly generous. So thank you, whether on the New Year's Eve show or a few weeks later. It doesn't really matter. We made our goals on the New Year's Eve show, And now we made our goal for today's show as well. So all is good. Thank you. All right. Let's move to, well, before we move to Super Chats, a few obligations I have to go through. Optima Prime says he's red dying of relief. I added the red, but dying of relief. For red dye number 3. We have a number of sponsors for the show. The Ayn Rand Institute is a sponsor. You can find out more information about all the programs at aynrand.org/start here. Among them is the possibility, the option of getting a scholarship, applying for a scholarship, and hopefully getting it to attend the Ayn Rand conference in Austin, Texas in February, where you will have Greg Salamieri and Ben Baer and Mike Mazza and others present content and do classes. And, it's going to be an incredibly fun event, and don't miss it. And if you can, of course, attend with a scholarship, how much the better. What have you got to lose? Apply. Primarily looking for serious students who really want to delve deep into objectivism. Go apply at aynrand.org/start here. Alex Epstein, of course, is a sponsor of the show. Alex has alexepstein.substack.com and Alex AI. You can find information about all of that. He just put out in the talking points in a Substack his basic 25 recommendations for the Trump administration and how to bring about energy abundance in the United States. It would be kind of interesting to read all 25 and then track the administration. This is their best topic. So let's see if they fulfill the 25, and let's see what the consequences are. I think it's great that Alex is breaking it down like this, is giving us a real, in a sense, a real guide to what the administration should be doing, what a pro-energy strategy would look like. And that's what this guide is. You can find that on his Substack. So go again to alexepstein.substack.com to read that, which I think is really enlightening. And then finally, I'll just say one of my goals over the next year is to see a substantial increase in the number of people who support the show on a regular monthly basis through Patreon or PayPal. We've seen a nice uptick of Patreon contributors over the last, I'd say over this month, January, over the last couple of weeks. And I really hope that continues. It's simple. You go in there, you set it up at whatever level you want, $5 a month, $10 a month, $25, $100, $250, $500. And then once a month, the money just gets deducted from your credit card that you set up, and it goes to support of the show. And it's a way that if you forget, or if you're never here live to do a super chat, or if you can't make the New Year's Eve show, but you want to regularly support the show because you get value from it. I don't want you to support the show if you don't get value from it, but then why are you listening if you're not getting value? But anyway, getting value from it, then just go to Patreon and sign up and set it up, and it's easy, and you can change. So if circumstances change and you want to reduce the amount or you want to increase the amount, you can do so very easily, a lot easier than you can on PayPal. That's why I recommend Patreon. If you're on PayPal, don't leave. I mean, if you're happy there, stay there. But for those new, I recommend Patreon just because it's the easier platform to work with. All right, let's jump in with questions. We got a lot of them, and see where we go from there. Michael has a $50 question. He says, Americans are attempting to be individualistic, but don't know how. So they default to narcissism. They're also trying to be benevolent and don't know how, so they default to being phony and superficial. They need objectivism to fill the holes. Yes, but I still think you're both too benevolent towards them, too positive towards them, and too harsh about them. They're not attempting to be individualistic because they don't know what that even means. They have, in part of their life, they kind of generally have a sense that they would like to be happy. And they pursue self-help, and they pursue other means. They pursue a better career. They pursue a higher earnings in order to try to achieve and gain that happiness. But I don't think they default to narcissism. I mean, I don't think that many Americans who are narcissists. Narcissism is a serious condition. And most of the people I know who are not objectivists, who are out there, are not narcissists. They're not Donald Trump, who is a narcissist. I think they're pragmatists. They don't know how. So in some areas of their life where it's convenient, they read the self-help books and they improve their life and they try to follow some principles, some guides to that. Other areas of their life, they're emotional basket cases, and other areas of their life, they go for, again, emotion, faith over reason. And it's just a mixture of things that is determined by whatever, a combination of appeasement of religion, because that's generally what is acceptable as good, and a little bit of kind of individualistic piece. And then they go to soup kitchen to feel a little better about themselves, to appease the altruism in them. But it's all a lack of principles. They just have no principles. It's not like they abide by Christian principles. It's not like they abide by altruistic principles. It's not like they abide by individualistic principles. They have the fundamental thing that makes Americans, that is American these days, is pragmatism, the absence of principles, not in the name of hedonism, of narcissism. I just don't think they're that bad. He continues, they also try to be benevolent and don't know how, so they default to being phony and superficial. I mean, not all Americans are phony and superficial. I don't think a majority are phony and superficial. Are the programmers of Silicon Valley phony and superficial? I don't think so. And I don't think that's because they're trying to be benevolent. I think, again, it's pragmatism. They don't have any principles, so sometimes they're this and sometimes they're that. Sometimes they go this direction, sometimes they go that direction. They have nothing to guide them. They have no way to... And in that sense, I agree with you. They need objectivism, not to fill in the holes at all. It's not about filling in holes. It's about providing them with a philosophical guidance to their life. So it's creating a new highway for them, not filling in the holes that they're already on the right. They're on the road, heading in the right direction, it's just full of potholes. No. They're heading in the wrong direction. What they need is a new highway to be paved and smooth, a new one. Not just filling in the holes, but a whole new highway built from scratch. And that's what objectivism provides them, or could provide them, if they're willing to accept it. All right. Dawn. Do you think Trump and Netanyahu have a plan for dealing with Hamas in the near future? Or do you think the latest deal was just an easy victory for PR? I don't think they have a plan. No, I don't think they've ever had a plan. I don't think Netanyahu's ever had a plan for dealing with Hamas for years and years and years, really, until October 7th. His plan was to kick the can down the road, pretend Hamas was something different than what they really were, hope, pray, whatever, that somehow he kicked the can down the road far enough that it wouldn't come to bite him. There's a mixture of metaphors. But yet it did on October 7th. It's not like on October 8th, Netanyahu had a plan. There was no plan. They generally wanted to go in. Do you remember how many times Netanyahu said victory, 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 victory? How many times over the last year and 4 months he said that term? Did he ever have a conceptual idea of what victory looked like, what victory meant? No. Did he have a day after plan? What would happen after victory and what would that look like? No. I mean, I know this comes as a shock to all of you, but Netanyahu is not a strategic thinker. And this will come as a bigger shock to you. But Trump is even worse. Trump is a pragmatist, cannot think strategically. Like everybody who claims he plays 4D chess, he cannot play chess. Because chess requires long-range planning and thinking on principle. Trump is just incapable of doing that because his whole philosophical, mental condition is around pragmatism. He can't conceive of long-term logical moves, strategy, outcomes, building towards a strategy like that. I mean, maybe to some extent he can do it in real estate, but he has shown no ability to do it in any other area. And I didn't see it in this first term. I didn't see it in the campaign. He is good at deception. He's good at marketing. He's good at people. He's not good at strategy. And indeed, he had strategy people in the campaign who did the strategy part of it. And I don't know that he has the right strategy people, foreign policy-wise, to do the kind of work to imagine what victory looks like over Hamas. Who is that going to be? Marco Rubio, who I think is a lightweight. Hegseth, who I think is a nothing. Who again, we have no evidence, no shred of evidence that Hegseth can think strategically. So I just don't see where the strategy is going to come from. Andrew, the political parties clamor for credit for the peace deal. Peace is good, they say. No context, no long-term view, no moral stand. In war, a side must surrender to lose. Peace is won. This is kicking the can down the road. Yes, absolutely. As I've said over and over and over again for many, many years, going back to 9/11, since I've been talking about foreign policy, which is over 20 years now. You got to win. Peace comes from victory. Victory requires a loser. Victory requires the loser know they lost. One thing I can tell you unequivocally, Hamas does not know they lost. Therefore, I would argue they haven't lost. By definition, victory requires the loser to know they have lost. So yeah, this is just dreadful. Ryan, is there one event this year that you are most excited about attending or witnessing? Greatest inauguration in history of mankind doesn't count. Well, I'm glad. I mean, that was my obvious choice. So one event, I can't think of anything in terms of external event that's happening out there. I will say that I am speaking at an event that I'm kind of excited about. Last time I spoke at this event, I got to meet Kemi Badenoch, the current leader of the Conservative Party. So I'm curious who I will meet this coming. Anyway, so on just after my birthday is the 23rd of May, probably on the 25th and 26th of May, I will be speaking at the world's largest ideas and music festival. I won't be singing or playing an instrument. So I'm on the side of the ideas, not the side of the music, but it is going to be the world's largest ideas and music festival. It's on Hay-on-Wye. Hay-on-Wye. Wye is the river, it's kind of a stream, river, that flows down this little village in Wales. And it's in Wales. The whole thing is like in tents and stuff. It's massive. Thousands and thousands of people attend this thing. Just to give you a sense of some of the other people who are attending this conference as speakers. We've got Steven Pinker. We've got, what's his name? Zizek, the philosopher, the communist philosopher who's all the rage on the internet. Jeremy Corbin is going to be there. Jeremy Corbin will be there. That'll be fun. Right? Nicholas Sturgeon will be there. Yanis Varoufakis will be there. Anyway, this is going to be, this is going to be Zizek. Zizek is his name, right? I'm going to be on, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to be on, at least 2 panels, debates, really debates. one on freedom, one on inequality, maybe one on conservatives. That'll be fun. I'll probably be doing a talk as well. I'm still waiting to finalize all these things. But that's going to be like 2 days of just intense event. I'm going to be doing 3-4 things, maybe more. We'll see. During this festival, and it just should be a lot of fun. And again, there'll be tens of thousands of people there, a lot of events going on in parallel. There'll be music and stuff. Not that I don't know that I'll be partaking. Last time I was there, unfortunately, it was rained and it was muddy. Everything was in the mud. It was kind of ugly. I'm hoping this time we get decent weather, but it is Wales. So I think gray, rainy, and muddy is like par for the course for Wales. I think that's just what the weather is in Wales. So I guess we'll wait and see. But I'm excited for that event. Supposedly, I haven't got confirmation, but supposedly I've been invited to... well, I've been invited, but I asked for money, so they haven't confirmed yet, to the largest student festival, supposedly in the world. It's in Trondheim, Norway, in March, which just makes me shiver just thinking about it. It's so cold. But again, to do something about freedom, again, a debate. So I think those are some of the highlights. I'm going to be in Clemson speaking in a couple of weeks on Israel, which should be fun. So if you're in the Clemson area, I hope you'll join us. There'll be information about the event up on my website. I'm also going to be at the Naples conference, the conference that is celebrating Rand's Day, Ayn Rand's 120th birthday. So join us in Naples. Come to Naples. It'll be a lot of fun. What else? Here's another one I'm excited about. I don't know anybody else, but I'm excited. You remember years ago, I used to go in London, in UK, I used to go speak at these private high schools, a lot of them very frou-frou fancy private high schools. Anyway, I've been invited back. So I'm going to be doing, as of right now, 5 different private high schools in the UK, including a high school I've only spoken once at before. It's a high school that Churchill went to, Harrows, which is always looked down upon by the people at Eton. But Harrows is this famous institution, really. Eton is where all the prime ministers come from, except for Churchill, who came from Harrows. So I'll be speaking there. I'll be speaking at 4 other high schools of similar quality. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I love speaking to British high school students. They're super smart and they have great accents, and they know a lot more than American high school students. Exposing them to Ayn Rand. A lot of this is related to the fact that in England, as part of your advanced politics class, there's an advanced politics class that they take in high school. Ayn Rand is one of the authors they have to engage with, they have to read. She's listed as a conservative thinker in politics. So I am there to dissuade them of the fact that she was a conservative. So those are some of the events I'm excited about going into this year. All right, let's see. Adam says, NHS requires a DI statements at least a page long in all grant applications. I know from a recent MIT alumni chat that grant applications are denied for inadequate DEI. I oppose RFK as anti-vax, but do we need change at the NIH? Yeah, we need a lot of changes at the NIH. I think the National Institute for Health it requires dramatic changes, even if you, certainly the DEI statement needs to go. But even if you think that the government should continue to fund science research, it's doing a terrible job at it. Not only because of DEI, but if you just look at the stats in terms of grants from the government for research. The grants tend to go for research that is conventional, within the mainstream. That everybody would say, yeah, okay, yeah. New ideas, anything radical, anything outside of the mainstream doesn't get funded. And one indication of this is the age of the researcher who's asking for a grant has gone up dramatically. That is, in the old days, most of the grants went to young researchers. The reality is that young people have new radical ideas. It's young people who move the needle in terms of moving science. I mean, this shouldn't surprise anybody. Think about how young Einstein was when he wrote his Nobel Prize-worthy articles. Think about any of the great scientists and how young they were. Think about founders of tech companies and how young they are. Think about, I don't know, music innovators and how young they often are. So youth matters. Youth is when you take risks, push envelopes, have new thoughts, break new ground. As people get older, they get more calcified, set in their ways, conventional, mainstream. And the fact that the age of the researchers that get NIH grants has increased significantly says something. I think there was something about, like, during COVID, like, I can't remember what the statistic is, but some unbelievable stat about the fact that NIH barely funded any COVID research during COVID. And I remember that Tyler Cowen set up a small, like his own small research fund to fund people who had interesting ideas around COVID. And he funded more than the NIH did. So, yeah, NIH and NHS, the whole thing, needs new leadership, just not RFK, who can think creatively and proactively about how to increase the efficiency of the research dollars that they spend. Silvano says, congratulations to Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin for successfully launching their rocket New Glen last night. Yes, this is a massive new rocket, and it went into, it had a flawless, I guess, launch. The launch was delayed. They stopped it a few days ago, and then yesterday made it into space. Terrific launch. Good for them. I think for the first time, really, SpaceX might have some competition. Thank you, Silvanos, for bringing that very positive story. Blackadder, this is from the show Blackadder, says, unfortunately, there's something wrong with your fiance, General Melchett. Oh, God, she's not Welsh, is she? Can be anything worse than having a fiance who's Welsh. You do not want a Welsh fiance, I am told. All right, let's see. By the way, we're $20 short of our 3-hour goal, even though we're not going to make 3 hours. We'll make 2. Matt asks, can you please join one of ARC UK's show to discuss Trump's role motive to deal and explain why he's much worse for Israel than most realize? I don't need to really. I mean, look, you get it here. And when I went on ARC UK, I didn't see a bump in their viewership, and I didn't see a bump in my viewership. So it's not really clear what value I get from going on there. And, you know, I think on this topic, they probably do a decent job. And they probably, I think I saw a video already. I didn't watch it, but I think I saw a video already arguing that the deal's a bad deal and that Trump did bad in advising this deal. Hopefully this is causing some people out there to rethink their view of Trump. Michael asks, who are the Ellsworth Tooheys of the world today? Well, I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't think there is an Ellsworth Toohey, because I think Ellsworth Toohey is uniquely vicious in the extent to which he's conscious of what he's doing. If you're asking who are the dominant intellectuals today who are basically eviscerating our culture and leading to its decline, then there are lots of them. I mean, Paul Krugman, although he just stopped writing his column for the New York Times, so maybe he's off the scene. You know, there are many of them on the left, and then people on the right. Tucker Carlson comes to mind, certainly is the equivalent of an Ellsworth Toohey when it comes to the destructive nature of his ideas. You know, I don't have any other names, but they're just lots of them. Most of the intellectuals around today are little less conscious Ellsworth Tooheys. Dan, Elon attacked Paul Graham, now on X, calling him a retard. Thoughts? Seems to be losing it. What did Paul Graham do? I mean, I don't like Paul Graham because his views on Israel and Gaza, but he's very good on other things. He's very good in other things. So I don't know. I'm trying to look. Trying to look what Paul Graham said that would cause this. All right. I mean, I have no idea. Maybe it's got to do with ChatGPT. Oh, here's Elon Musk writing to Paul. Oh, please, you live in an aristocratic country house in the English countryside. Your kids go to an elite private day school. Oh, maybe one of the schools that I'll be speaking at. And you sit at home all day on the internet. Mr. Paul Graham hasn't run into an ordinary person in years. And this is in response to Paul saying, I worry Elon has no idea how much he has damaged his personal brand in the UK. He thinks he's just tweeting away. And meanwhile, ordinary British people now think of him like some sinister rich bad guy in a Batman movie. And Elon says, don't be a retard who believes bogus polls. There's a poll out in Britain that shows that Elon Musk is pretty much disliked by everybody, you know, including conservatives and including, you know, white, non-white, whatever. And then Paul says, I was thinking mainly of conversations I've had with ordinary people. I don't think you realize the size of the gap between how your tweets about the UK seem to people in Texas and how they seem to people in the UK. And then Elon says, what do you know about ordinary people, Paul? You live in a country house somewhere as an aristocrat. I mean, these are some of the richest, most successful entrepreneurs and venture capitalists in our history, and this is the conversations they're having on Twitter. It's a little sad. It's a little sad. And I think this is in relation to the grooming gangs, I guess, and Elon Musk's emphasis on that. Yeah, and then Elon Musk goes on and on and on about how upset he is. Yeah, and I guess they continue this conversation on and on and on. I'll follow that and see if there's anything really significant here that is of interest. If there is, I'll report back. Esoteric Dichotomy. Hey, Yaron, have you read Sam Harris's Substack about his falling out with Elon Musk? Sad Elon is such a mixed bag. Do you have any living role models? Yeah, I mean, I read the one portion about the bet that they had about COVID and how Elon Musk reneged on the bet, that Elon lost the bet and reneged on it. At least that's Sam Harris's point of view. Yeah, I mean, as I've told you, I have a very, very mixed view of Elon Musk. I don't need Sam Harris to tell me about it. That this just reinforces how sad it is that Elon is as mixed as he really is. Do I have any living role models? Probably not. Probably not. No, I don't think I have. Esoteric Wendy, hey Ron, any favorite fiction books lately? God, I haven't read any fiction books lately. Sad to admit this to myself, I have to say. I haven't read, maybe that's a good New Year's resolution, to read more fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction, but I need to start reading some fiction. Some of the nonfiction is fiction, but nonfiction. John, so it appears that Trump has named a member of the Republican Party, the members of the Republican Party Revival Committee. Hopefully they will get to work right away. Oh, there's a Republican Party Revival Committee? That's going to be an interesting one. I thought they were revived. I thought they're doing phenomenally well. I thought he won by a landslide. I thought Republican Party has never been healthier, bigger, more robust, and more supported by the American people than right now under Donald Trump. I guess that's not true. He won by 1.5 percentage points, popular vote. Won in all the swing states, but by very small margins. And Republicans hold the smallest majority in the House of Representatives, I don't know, for 100 years or something ridiculous. And they pretty much have a small majority in the Senate, much smaller than what they hoped for. Brownie, is Hamas still going to be running Gaza after this? I don't see why not. And I certainly hope not, but I don't see why not. Friend Hopper, consider announcing subscriber progress once a week or more. Some people like being the one that rounds the subscriber number to the nearest 5 or 10, and progress motivates progress. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just mention that if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe or consider subscribing. It would be great. We are getting very, very close to 39,000 subscribers. We should be, we should make it by the end of February, maybe before that. But it could be any day now. We could make it a few good, really, really good days. We'll get there. A few short videos that hit. We'll get there. But if you're watching these live shows, please subscribe, and then you'll get notified about them. If you're watching them after the fact, subscribe. It's great to see those subscribers numbers rise. I think we're 38,820 right now. So we're 180 away from being from getting to 39,000, which would be great if we could get there sooner rather than later. And let me see. Let me give you the exact number, since Finn Hopper challenged me. I was wrong. We're 38,878. So we're 22 away from 38,900 and 122 away from 39,000. So we're even closer than I thought we were. So please consider, if we can get 12 today, then we'll be, at 22. 22 would be better. 22, then we're at 38,900. And then we'll just have 100 to get to the end. We might be able to do that by the end of the month. Who knows? It's possible. Subscribe, like, and support. Subscribe, like, support. Subscribe, like, support. Thank you, Fend Hopper. And then finally, Dan says, Corbin, big Hamas sympathizer, take him down, Yaron. I probably won't be on a panel with Corbin, although that would be fun to take him down, but they probably won't put me on the same panel with him. And I don't think Israel's going to be a topic because my guess is they don't have enough security. All right, everybody. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you in particular to Armin, who came in and put $500 down and got us almost to the 3-hour goal. We're $20 short. Maybe somebody will come in, maybe a couple of people with $10 each coming to get us there. But in any case, we haven't gone 3 hours, so maybe that's okay. Thank you, Armin. Thank you to all of you guys, all the super chatters, all the sticker people. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to like before you leave and to share, particularly the short videos that we put out on a regular basis. I will see you all tomorrow. Same time, I think. 2 p.m. East Coast time. See you then. Bye, everybody.